behind the scenes at SKOR North and 1500 ESPN have sports opinions, so they want you to hear them. It's the perfect digital sports soapbox to scratch that Minnesota sports itch. This is the SKOR North Taxi Squad.
And welcome into another episode of the SKOR North Taxi Squad, available on SKORNorth.com, the SKOR North mobile app, Apple, Spotify, and of course, the SKOR North YouTube channel. My name is Jason Stormer, one of your cabbies on duty today, joined with the others, AJ Fredrickson and Artis Woods. And guys, I'm trying to keep a positive tone to start the show because we all know what we're going to eventually talk about later in the program today, or probably right as the program starts. Normally, we would love to come on this program and talk about a 24-10 win for the Minnesota Vikings. We'll probably sprinkle a little bit in there as we go. But we all know the devastating news that happened immediately after the game. Kirk Cousins. Yes, that Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. Just an absolute bummer. But we'll try to keep a positive attitude on the show. Guys, how are you feeling on this Wednesday evening?
Feeling pretty good, man. Sorry for all the movement in the beginning here. I'm trying to keep this game running. World Series is live right now, and I'm having a good time watching it. It's been an interesting series so far. Yes, I've been just a little tuned in, trying to get up on my baseball knowledge a little bit. But other than the Kirk Cousins news, which was absurd, I'm doing well. I mean, the Vikings still won, at least. Got another win under the belt, so I'm feeling good. I'm feeling very good. How you feeling, AJ?
I'm still recovering from that snowfall the other day. I mean, it's too early. If we're getting snowfall and I'm having to drive in it before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving I can maybe understand, but Halloween? Are we joking here?
No. Unless it's 1991 and we're getting that blizzard again. No.
Oh my God. Don't even get me started on that. I hate that. It's an every year thing. Well, you wouldn't believe how much snow we got back in 91. Yeah, we get it. It snowed. It just happened again here. Not as bad, obviously, but it happens sometimes. It's every yearly thing. We get it. It snowed. Who cares?
Minnesota, we just don't have much to do in the winter other than talk about the weather. That's
is there really that much not else happening to where we have to bring that up every year? But anyways, it's supposed to warm up a little bit. It's supposed to be mid 40s here later in the week and into the weekend, so everything should melt. And then we'll re-prepare. But I'm doing fine. Other than that, I got to and from my destinations safely.
That's all that matters, right? Cool. Yeah, man, I felt bad for all the trick-or-treaters last night. I went out with my nieces, Parker and Bowen, and we weren't even out for an hour. We just did up and down the blocks, and that was pretty much it. Thankfully, plenty of houses were all lit up with Halloween festivities. Got plenty of candy. They even had a couple of houses handing out the king-size candy bars. Those are the best kind of houses on Halloween. Yeah, it snowed in the Twin Cities, but it unfortunately rained on the Minnesota Vikings parade. Like I mentioned, Kirk Cousins out for the season with a torn Achilles. Was this okay?
10 out of 10 transition there, my friend.
That was better.
Somebody's brought his A game today. Sorry to interrupt you. Keep on doing your thing.
Yes, sir. It can only go downhill from here. Anyway, Kirk Cousins tearing his Achilles. The initial injury, he got ruled out with an ankle. But as we all know, that was the same prognosis initially that Aaron Rodgers had when he ultimately tore his Achilles. Then the game ended. Vikings win 24-10, beat Green Bay. Awesome. And then I don't know. It was probably within the hour after the game ended that Adam Schefter reported that it was most likely an Achilles injury for Kirk Cousins. MRI confirmed that, I believe, the next day. And I actually think he just had surgery within the last 24 hours. I think I saw him post that on his social media channel. And I think even before his surgery, he did some kind of trick or treat event at a TCO. And so that's pretty cool that Kirk, even though he's injured and totally didn't have to, still showed up and hung out with the kids for Halloween. That's awesome. But guys, I got to know where you were, what you were doing when you first saw or even heard the news that Kirk went down. I mean, obviously he went down in game. It was just absolutely insane, but just I just want the raw emotion of what you guys felt in that moment and what you thought it just meant for the Minnesota Vikings right then and there. Artis, we'll start with you.
So yeah, I was flipping back and forth between a couple games, to be honest. When I flicked back to the Vikings game, I saw he was, on the cart, and I'm like, yeah, it's not a good sign. But I'm thinking it's Kirk. We all know Kirk is one of the more durable guys in the NFL. He never really misses a game, never is hurt. So I still didn't want to think too much of it. I just figured, okay, maybe it's something I don't know. I was trying to hope it was something minor, even though we know the carts, when they get rolled out, it's never a good sign. Then I saw the replay. Rewound the TV, saw the replay, and I was like, that does not look like an ankle injury at all. But I still didn't want to necessarily speculate. Achilles injuries, since Kevin Durant's Achilles injury years ago in the finals, has become more of a visible thing to me. Like I could kind of tell when it is, when you kind of see how the calf and stuff like that shifts and all that without going into detail. And so I kind of knew, but I was like, maybe it's just like a strain or something. But then obviously the news broke that it was a torn Achilles, and devastating news, man. I mean, the Vikings were honestly on a tear. Defense hadn't allowed more than 20 points in like 3 straight weeks since the Chiefs game. They've been playing really well. Kirk Cousins was playing some of the best football he's played in his entire career. And so things were looking up for the Vikings. And now I guess we'll talk about what the Vikings did next. You know, they went out and got Dobbs, and apparently they're going to make a couple moves at quarterback here. But when I found out what the news actually was and that he tore his Achilles, my first thought was, yes, it's over. That was my first thought. Like, it's over. So just my knee-jerk reaction.
I was out getting a little brunch at a local establishment. Won't say where because honestly, it was pretty mid. But yeah, you know, it was.
You might as well put it out there because it was mid. You know,
what was the problem?
It's like nothing stood out. Nothing was great. Gotcha. Atmosphere was mediocre. Service was fantastic, but it was just the food was just, ugh, you know. It wasn't bad. It just was not good, you know. Anyways, for the sake of maybe potential sponsors within the SKOR North branding, I will keep my trap closed. But no, so I got home, I see the news, and I didn't really see much other than like, I hope Kirk is okay, blah blah blah. And I saw the score, I was like, okay, well, you know, they can close it out. Just I get it, Kirk. He's had some like scares and whatnot, because you never know really how bad it was with me. And I didn't know the extent of what was actually happening. But then I saw the replay and I was like, oh my God, no. And I'm not going to make some like wild, over exaggerated like metaphor here, comparing that to like, you know, I don't even want to like throw a hypothetical. It just sucks. It sucks. One, as a fan, because he was balling out. Like we talked about this last week, the way that he's been playing, the conversation about him for the past, you know, maybe year or two after he's kind of elevated, especially last year, was like, okay, he's a top 10 guy. You know, he's right on that fringe. He's not in that elite category, but he's definitely up there as being a very, very, very good. He has been balling out this year. And I think he's risen that level to, God, like I said, I threw it out there last week. He was looking like a top 5 guy. You know, he had the composure. The windows he was hitting at times were just incredible. He was leading in like most passing attempts per games. And granted, that's due to in part because the Vikings running game up until this point, and still maybe continues to be, has been not great. So I think they've been 31st in rushing attempts, but they were leading the league in passing attempts up until his injury. So the numbers obviously should come with the skill set that he has, and him and KOC, the chemistry has kind of been cooking. KOC's got that wired QB mind. He didn't really have like the physical attributes to be a standout quarterback during his run in the NFL, which is now, you know, he's transitioning to being a coach. And you're seeing now, and unfortunately it has come to an abrupt end this season, the benefits of having that type of mind leading your team when you have a more than capable quarterback with the skill tree that Kirk Cousins has. Especially for like the adversity that Kirk has been going through with losing Justin Jefferson, he's been adjusting, and now, you know, we saw what Jordan Addison did the other week, and that the coming out party that he's been having. TJ Hawkinson has it's been a rough go for him to start the season, but the past week or two has been kind of ascending and looking more closer to himself again. The defense, he has the defense on the other side of the ball. The O-line, finally, after however long it's been an O-line for the Minnesota Vikings, and all of a sudden just hit the brakes. Yeah, you got to change your game plan. Have you guys ever tried to do like a Rubik's Cube, like when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
I remember it was like a trend. It was like a mini trend where it was like, oh, you're cool because you could do a Rubik's Cube. And it's just basic algorithms, but getting like that first one of like even cheating by looking at it on paper, like here's what you do. You get close. Imagine you're doing that, or like, okay, you're doing a puzzle. You're doing like a 1,000-piece puzzle, and you have 998 of these in. You have 2 to go, and then for some reason it just doesn't fit, and then the table falls into a black hole and the puzzle that's just what happened to the Vikings. They're back to square one. I'm not nervous because we just have to accept it. It's going to be entertaining the rest of the way, but the problem is they've won 3 straight games to get back to a 500 after just a very very bad start. So in hindsight you almost wish they hadn't done that, because then this trade deadline looks a lot differently. You get value for, the leading sack getter in the league with Danielle Hunter. You move a guy like KJ Osborne, who after the season will be a free agent. You get some sort of pick for him, probably not a good one, but maybe a higher day 3 pick. I like what they did, and we'll talk about it, but it's really unfortunate that Kirk Cousins' injury occurred, not only when it did, but also I think to the person, because as much as criticism as he's taken and I've thrown his way over the past couple of years and blah blah blah, he has looked tremendous this season, and everything that we saw behind the scenes and kind of the personality that we saw last season emerge. You never want this to happen to anybody, but it sucks for a guy that is as good of a person, it seems like, behind the scenes off the field, plus also in a contract year for him. Just all the factors that could be going wrong right now are.
Yeah, this is truly like one of the worst times, honestly, for anybody to really have a serious injury right before the trade deadline. And considering there was, even I think it had been tempered over the last couple of weeks with the Vikings improving upon their record, I think there was still conversations happening about whether or not Kirk Cousins would be moved at the deadline. It was still going to it would be moving a mountain to have done that in the first place with the no trade clause, so it probably wouldn't have happened anyway. But if say the Vikings didn't beat San Francisco and they were 3-5 going into Lambeau, and say you even lost that game at Lambeau and you still only had 3 wins on the season, well, now that makes the whole situation that much worse. It was. I got to give the Vikings front office a little bit of credit, not necessarily for the trades that they made. We'll get into that in a little bit, but just for managing just a crisis situation like this. This is like one of the worst things front office can be thrown at them. And they made some moves that at least addressed it, and they did it in a timely manner too, because the trade deadline was 48 hours or so after Kirk tore his Achilles. So the whole situation stinks. AJ mentioned he's in a contract year. That stinks as well. Nobody's really coming out. This just stinks all around for the Vikings. And obviously this affects their season greatly. The momentum was happening. I was coming on this program being very positive. I think there were plenty of reasons to be positive, especially after that Niners win. And it stinks that we can't just rub it in the cheesehead's face, because it just doesn't even feel like we won that ball game, even though we clearly did. But the Packers got a whole lot of other problems.
I was about to say the Packers.
My goodness,
the Packers are bad. So you could talk as much trash as you want.
No,
they are bad.
I know it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right though, because we lost Kirk Cousins. But Matt LaFleur has been making some very questionable decisions for that Packer offense. Still got a good defense, but just things aren't working out. But man, this couldn't have happened to probably a better guy in Kirk Cousins. And yes, AJ said we've definitely we've criticized Kirk plenty on this program, you know what I mean? But what's been really cool is just kind of seeing around the league just all the support for Kirk among like players and coaches and everything like that. I think even teams have like tweeted out just like their support for Kirk and wishing him a speedy recovery and everything like that. So what I've just noticed ever since all this happened is just like, I think more so than what Vikings fans realize is that Kirk has a pretty extensive support system across the NFL. Even if maybe, GMs aren't nipping at the bud to try to acquire him on his team or anything like that, I think he's very well respected among the inner circles of the NFL. And I think, it was a devastating hit to the league to lose a guy like Kirk Cousins, because let's admit, like, Kirk Cousins' marketability over the last couple of years has been awesome. He threw on another chain after the Niners win and everything like that. Did that commercial about the script, I think, for either NFL Network or ESPN beforehand, wearing the chain and everything. So it's been fun to get the personality of Kirk and be able to market that. And obviously he's still around the team and everything like that. I think Cam Bynum said that don't be surprised if you still see Kirk on the sideline wearing his helmet during the games where he can't play, because he still wants to hear all the communications from the head coach and the quarterbacks and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's just classic Kirk right there. He loves wearing his helmet. He doesn't want to ever take it off. But yeah, if we transition the conversation to what this means for the current Minnesota Vikings, they sit at 4-4. We got the Atlanta Falcons coming up this Sunday. We'll preview the game, obviously, like we normally do towards the end of the show. But I mean, guys, let's just like take away. We'll get to the Josh Dobbs stuff in a second. But do you guys just think that like the Vikings can still make a playoff run without Kirk Cousins? They acquired Josh Dobbs for, I believe, what was it, a 6th round pick? No, they gave up a 6th round pick, but they were also given a 7th round pick.
And that 7th round pick through some conditions can turn into a 6 potentially.
Right. But we don't know if he's going to be the starting quarterback yet. We're going to let Jaren Hall start this week. And I'm just curious what your guys' confidence is right now in Jaren Hall, or would you like to see Josh Dobbs kind of get in the rhythm as soon as possible? Artis, what do you think?
I want to pitch this to AJ first because I have something to say. And I was thinking about this before I came into work today. And I don't know if I should say it, but I'm going to say it. But I want to see if you guys say it first, so I don't sound that crazy when I say it. So I'm going to let at least you, AJ, go first, and then I'll say what I have to say, and then I'll pitch it back to you guys. I know what I have to say. If you don't say it first, we'll get me killed in the comments, but I'm going to say it. So go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
From my understanding, the trade to go get Josh Dobbs was in the case of they weren't sure what Nick Mullins' like health status is going to be, because he's got like a back thing going on or something like that. So they're not sure. So I understand going out and getting a guy because you don't want to mortgage too much. I think honestly, it's a pretty solid move. If you're giving up a 6 for a 7th and him, and then that 7th could potentially be a 6. I'm guessing like if he doesn't meet certain playing time stuff. When it comes to if I have faith in Jaren Hall, no is my answer. I mean, I just haven't seen enough. You know, he's a rookie at a BYU. Am I excited for him? Maybe is what I'll turn the question to. Yes, because I personally am glad that even though they got Josh, I don't know, maybe in the facility Tuesday night, let's say, that's not enough time to learn a system fully and look even halfway decent, no matter, you know, how many, maybe not now, no matter how many starts, because if it's a true seasoned, like well-accustomed vet, maybe, but in Josh Dobbs' case, I don't think that's enough time. I want to see Jaren Hall, and frankly, you didn't do the Mr. Irrelevant pick with him. You drafted him somewhere in the middle of the draft ish. So we've seen what he can do at college, and I think Jaren Hall, that doesn't always translate for a lot of guys, but I want to see what he can do. I don't want to see a quick hook. Let him go out there. I don't think anybody should be expecting a lot. Don't expect a 400-yard, 3-touchdown game from him. Let him make mistakes. And right now, he's walking into a situation where he is set up for success. Like this is the situation for any rookie QB to want to waltz into right now. Sure, you're missing the best wide receiver in the NFL, but you do have a really good up-and-coming rookie, like I said, is having somewhat of a coming out party. Jordan Addison has looked good. You have an incredibly talented tight end when he's on his game in TJ Hawkinson. You have one of the better O-lines. I believe they're up. I've seen based on like different rankings, they're either a top 5, and I mean like a number 5, or they're like number 8 O-line in the league right now based on certain metrics. And then on the other side of the ball, your defense has been, let's say, top 10, maybe 12-ish, a huge jump from what we saw last year from the Donachel defense. Brian Flores has absolutely reinvented this defense and has benefited the Vikings greater. So to bring it all back, I want Josh Dobbs right now to settle into the backup role until further notice. I want let's say three mistakes, like 3 strikes and you're out for Jaren Hall. You know, I'm not saying an interception, blah, 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 because frankly, we saw the turnovers that this team has been doing all season long. If he turns the ball over, what's new? The only thing new is the guy throwing the ball at that point. But if it's like hard to watch football, if it gets to a point where it's a blowout and teams are going to be, or broadcasts are going to be like moving out of the game for bonus coverage, because that's when you have second thoughts. I'm fine with Jaren Hall going in there. I don't think anybody's expecting these guys to make a deep run into the playoffs. I think given the situation, if they get to the playoffs, that's considered a successful season. Unfortunately, with the way things look now, you're probably going to get to like 7 wins, not a playoff team, but you're still picking outside the top 10 in the draft. So you're really not going to get too much better unless somebody really messes up or somebody falls big time. And then you're not going to rule it as like a successful season. So it's frustrating. But when it comes to Jaren Hall, I mean, I want him to play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in a rush to get Josh Dobbs under center. Let Jaren Hall cook. I really do want to see what he has, because imagine if Brock, and granted, we know what Brock Purdy the past 3 weeks have been, and that's not pretty. That has been shredded newspaper. But on the other side of things, you don't get that magic that was Brock Purdy last year in the first 5-ish games this season. If he doesn't get a chance, you got to at least see what these guys, you can't just bury these guys on the practice squad or third string. And, you get these reps in practice. Granted, you're getting reps in practice, and these guys that coach, they know more football than I ever will. But I want to still see it, because sometimes those guys just have that intangible where once it's game time and the pressure's on and all the cameras and the eyes and everybody's attention is on them, they just find that next gear. They have that playmaking ability. They have that on the fly mentality to make things work. That sidearm, maybe it's not going to work, but I have this instinct to just make it happen. And all of a sudden I have a completion and he's still running up the field. So I'm not saying Jaren Hall is going to wow me, but I want to at least see what he's got here. Give him some time, get him under center, give him some, like I said, 3 strikes, he's out.
Absolutely. I want to give him a shot too, because I, for one, still have nightmares about what happened to the Vikings on October 16th, 2013. You guys remember what happened to the Vikings on, I believe, a Monday Night Football game against the New York Giants? They started Josh Freeman in that game, who had been signed only for a week at that point, and it was an absolutely disastrous game for not only the Vikings, well, maybe after the show, baby. Oh my God.
Oh,
all right. Anyway, it was a disastrous game for the Vikings, even more so disastrous for Josh Freeman. It pretty much dang near derailed his career after that, and he was pretty decent with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers up to that point. I would feel so bad if a similar situation happened to Josh Dobbs, if the Vikings threw him out there against the Atlanta Falcons. It doesn't make sense. Jaren's been on the roster for the entire season. Yes, he's a rookie, but at least he's gotten way more time to understand the playbook and be immersed in it than Josh Dobbs. Not that Josh Dobbs is not doing everything in his current power to get ready to start for the Minnesota Vikings, but it's unreasonable to do it this week, and it'd be borderline malpractice if you threw Josh Dobbs out there. And so we'll see what Jaren Hall's got. Vikings coaches, and I believe even Kwesi Adofo-Mensah today, just talked him up, hyping him up, making sure that they're going to do everything in their power to put him in a good position. And I think the Vikings will do that. Whether that translates to actual success on the field against the Falcons and ultimately ends up as a W for the Vikings, that will be remain to be seen. But I'm willing to give this guy as long of a shot as possible. I mean, this Falcons game is going to be really telling. I mean, I think the Falcons are like 4.5-point favorites, so that's not terrible. But if it's pretty clear and obvious that the Vikings aren't able to compete even against, a pretty middling Atlanta Falcons team, then I don't think it'll take much from the front office and the coaching staff to really just be like, okay, even though we traded for a guy like Dobbs, maybe unless things get really bad, we'll just let Jaren Hall play the rest of the season. Honestly, I'm not opposed to letting Dobbs be the backup for the entire season. One, because Nick Mullins' injury issues are still going on, but two, I want to give Jaren Hall a shot. And I don't think we gave up a ton in terms of draft equity to get Josh Dobbs, this is very similar to the deal that we did with Cam Akers, very low risk, high reward. But yeah, guys, I mean, considering now that the future of Kirk Cousins being on the Minnesota Vikings is more in doubt than ever, we have to see what these young guys got. We just have to see. It might not result in much of anything, but I think that's okay. And you know, you like to have that kind of, you like to have the preseason for that kind of stuff, but unfortunately things like this happen, and it thrusts young guys like Jaren Hall into starting positions. I expect things to probably be a little rusty at first. I mean, he was pretty rusty for the Packers when he came in for the Packers game, but you know what? I mean, that was to be expected. He definitely wasn't expecting to go in that game, even if he was prepared to. And so, yeah, I'm all for just letting Jared go in this game. If he has a bad game, then yes, we can obviously have that conversation about Josh Dobbs against the Saints the following week. But as of right now, I mean, they got to do this kind of stuff. Now, it's not to say that you do that across your entire roster. Like, it's not like you sit Danielle Hunter or something like that so younger guys can play. You're not going to want to do that. In fact, I, for one, think that this is going to be an extremely motivated Minnesota Vikings squad going to Atlanta, because they are going to want to prove that they can still win without their main starting quarterback in Kirk Cousins. I guarantee you that locker room is going to be they just really are going to want to get a W down in Atlanta. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. George did. Anyway, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if the Vikings even win in Atlanta, but I'll save my predictions for a little bit later. But what I'm ultra curious now is if me or AJ said the thing that Artis said that he was going to say. So was it or was it not, Artis?
You guys actually, AJ specifically took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh,
the first thing I thought when Dobbs was brought in was I didn't like it, because Josh Dobbs, he was a starter. Like, he's a guy who was just starting for the Cardinals. Now, granted, he wasn't winning a lot of games, but he wasn't playing terrible. Mm-hmm. And so my first thought when they did that was, no way they're going to throw Dobbs out there and let him start now. I thought maybe they might have Jaren Hall play one game and then just to get Dobbs, used to the system, and then throw him out there. And I'm completely opposed to it. I'm glad I don't sound crazy. Because I said this before, and I'll say it again. Jaren Hall was not bad in college, and he wasn't a guy that was a turnover machine. And that's one thing that you fear with rookie quarterbacks. That's one thing that you fear with backup quarterbacks. With rookie quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, you want them to come in and game manage. That's what you want. You don't want them to come in and throw 400, 500 yards, 350, 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. You want them to come in and game manage, especially when your defense is playing the way it's been playing. Like I said, last couple of weeks, haven't been allowing more than 10 points. In college, I mean, 2021, 5 interceptions, 20 touchdowns, 2022, 31 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That ain't bad. I know some college quarterbacks are throwing the ball 40, 50 touchdowns. We understand all that. But I'm focused on the interceptions, because what I saw in the Packers game in the limited time he was out there is a guy who was rusty but poised. He was still poised. He didn't have jitter feet. He wasn't all over the place. He sat in the pocket. He took that hit, took that strip sack. But he sat in the pocket. He delivered his 2 passes. It was only 2, but he sat there and he delivered the ball. So you have an opportunity now with the quarterback that you just drafted to, like you guys said, see what he's got. There is a possibility. Granted, we brought up Brock Purdy. Tom Brady was drafted last pick of his draft, came in as a backup. Nobody expected much, right? So you have an opportunity. Not saying he's going to be Tom Brady, but you have an opportunity to see what he can be. He's going to have some highs. He's going to have some probably really low lows. But at the same time, by the end of this season, you're going to kind of have a good idea as to where to work with going forward. And I like that, given the fact you don't know what Kirk is going to do. Like, I'm hearing that they want to have Kirk back, and Kirk might want to stay, but you never know what's going to happen, financially, what other teams are going to be looking to bring him in. You don't necessarily know how he's going to look fresh off of this out of Jaren Hall. Hopefully, JJ comes back. I feel like he will. That ultimately helps your offense. You obviously have KJ. You obviously have Addison, who's coming on strong. TJ in the tight end position. And then when I look at the schedule, I'm not confident any of these teams can beat the Vikings, even with Jaren Hall, if he's playing smart, efficient football like how he did in college. Now it's the NFL, so anything is possible. It happens, right? But I mean, you got the Falcons. I think they can beat the Falcons. The Saints have a good defense, so he probably will have a hard time against the Saints. But you never know. It's in Minnesota. You never know. You got the Broncos, who's been, I mean, they just beat the Chiefs, but they are not that team this year.
No.
Chicago, the Raiders, who don't even get me started. Now the Bengals are coming. The Bengals are coming on strong. You got the Lions again twice, and you got the Packers. But that's what I mean when I say I think you'll see some highs against these teams, and I think you'll see some lows, and you'll have a pretty good idea as to what you're working with. You'll also see how he manages, from week to week as teams start to get film and tape on him. But he's a quarterback nobody knows anything about besides college, and that's always a plus too. You don't really know how to game plan against him. So I think even though Kirk's injury is devastating, and I'm glad you guys said the same thing I'm saying, even though it's devastating, I'm not writing the Vikings off. My first thought was it's over. Then I thought, well, Jaren Hall, I liked him out of college. Well, the schedule is still in some games. Well, Detroit, I don't expect them to fall off, but it's Detroit. You never know. So I'm looking at this. Like I said, it's a good opportunity to figure out what you have. I personally would not have. Now I'm not the GM. I would not have went and got Dobbs. I would have gotten another quarterback that is a clear, and one could say Dobbs is a clear backup, but a guy that's already a backup right now as we speak. Like I might have called like RG3 or something. Like anybody just to have a body there, just to make sure that he knows there is no pressure for anybody else to come in. And last thing I'll say, no matter how bad he plays, I'm leaving him out there. I'm leaving. I don't care. He won't get any strikes as long as he's healthy. Yeah. I'm leaving him out there to go through his highs, his lows, and again, by the end of the season, you'll see what you have.
Here's my quick thing that I'm not nervous about, but I am anxious to watch. So Sunday against the Packers, he did not expect to be seeing the field other than when he walked out there. Other than from the sidelines. Kirk Cousins is not a guy that misses snaps. He's not a guy that misses games. Up until that, he was incredibly, incredibly durable. Just an incredibly strong-willed, like physical specimen. He didn't have time to like mentally prepare. He got thrust into it. I want to know and see how he does with the nerves.
Yeah.
Granted, now he's got time to game plan. And not that he wasn't game planning for this past week. And he's going to the meetings. He's sitting in. He's looking at film with everybody. He's, I'm sure trying to learn from Kirk and everything. And from what I have read, they've been like talking, texting, calling throughout the week so far as well. But Sunday morning rolls around. Is he cool as a cucumber, heart rate low, or is he? If you guys have seen like Invincible, I'm sure Artis, you have, given it's a Eagles movie, but Vince Papale, he's in the bathroom throwing up, and he's like, "Yeah, no, bad room service or something." That's probably what it was, bad room service.
Yeah,
I'm anxious to see, because this is I was gonna say a young guy, but what, he's 25 and a half.
Yeah.
For a rookie QB, he's a little older, but he doesn't have that NFL experience. I want to know his first NFL start. That first drive is going to be really telling, because if he sits in the pocket, he steps into throws, he's hitting guys right in the hands, we might be off and running here, fellas. But if he is throwing the ball away, if he's scrambling and he's just, what's the term, seeing ghosts or something like that, he's just throwing it away, or just missing guys completely, it could be a long day. So I'm anxious to see, with a full week of nerves and preparation, what does Jaren Hall bring to the field?
Not to pivot, but I got a quick question.
No, let's pivot.
Let's do it.
just Jeff step. No, quick question.
Harry, by the way, RIP. Love you.
Says right. Say Hall goes out there and like he balls. Like the rest of the season, he looks like Brock Purdy when Brock Purdy was playing really good football. The Vikings make the playoffs, and like let's say they lose wild card round, right? At that point, if Kirk Cousins says, "Hey, I want to come back to Minnesota, and I'll come back on a discount," but keep in mind, Jaren Hall was balling while he was in. Do you still bring Kirk back on that discount for, say, 2 years? Or do you just say, you know what, I'm going to work with Jaren Hall on this rookie scale contract, build around him, and see what we have?
This comes down solely in my mind to what the discount is.
Yeah.
And when you, I know, I mean, I can imagine what like him balling out means, but like I need actual numbers, like, you know, what level, or give me some numbers or something. Cause like
he's averaging. Okay, let's say he's averaging. Let's say how many games they got left? Like 8 games, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they finish 10-7, right?
And they make the playoffs. Yeah.
Make the playoffs. And like, let's say per game, because I don't know what the numbers would look like. If,
yeah.
You know, so let's say per game he's averaging like 260, 3 touchdowns a game,
but not 2 to 3 interceptions as well.
No,
he's got
say it's like college where he's not turning the ball. He has a couple interceptions here and there, but he's not turning the ball over, and he's good for like 260, 3 touchdowns a game.
Well, to be honest, I think if we're going to like recklessly speculate into the offseason, I probably am leaning towards that this Achilles injury for Kirk Cousins means that he will not be back next year. I don't know if the Vikings just want, even if he was healthy, we just aren't sure if the Vikings want to commit to him after this season. But now I'm not sure the Vikings want to do that with a 36-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury. Even though, I mean, he can come back and he can ball out, and that's fine.
I'm saying, what would you do, Jason? How would you handle this situation?
I would let Kirk Cousins walk. If Jaron Hall flashes in any capacity, I want to see what we have for the rest of the season, maybe even going into next season. I would still be open to drafting somebody, though. Jaron Hall will really, really, really have to wow me. Like, let's bump that up to 304 touchdowns a game. You know what I mean?
I didn't want to go that high because I feel like that's a stretch.
And I don't think that's reasonable to expect anyway.
Right.
That's what I would do. If Jaron Hall even flashes a little bit, if there's even any conversation that the three of us are having by the time the season is over about Jaron Hall being the starting quarterback for the Vikings in 2024, I'm letting Kirk walk. I just am. But you know what? I might have been willing to let Kirk walk even if he stayed healthy the entire season anyway. So.
Okay.
That's just me.
Well, I think the thing there is if Kirk stays healthy, he's demanding more. He's commanding, not demanding, but commanding more money in the open market rather than coming off this torn Achilles. So in this hypothetical, I am probably gonna, if I'm able to extend JJ and extend Danielle Hunter and keep those two talents in-house, and then whatever remaining money plus wiggle room, because you're gonna have to think about, you're still gonna, if you're signing these guys, you're still competitive. You have to be competitive with these guys on your roster. You have to have a little wiggle room if you want to make a trade or some type of moves throughout the year. If that money's left over and that works for Kirk, then I'm bringing him back. Absolutely. Because, I mean, you saw what he was doing. And I know he's older, but he's like Benjamin Button. He's like it doesn't make sense. He's just continuously getting better with age. He's like a fine wine, except you're getting instead of Napa Valley, you're getting your wine at like Costco. But somehow you crack the bottle open and it's just the best Cabernet you've ever had. Like it's crazy. No, I would probably bring him back. Especially no offense to those numbers, but like 260 is respectable for a rookie guy, and especially if he's throwing 2 or 3 touchdowns and they make playoffs. That's not enough to wow me personally.
I'm just saying on average, because he might have a game where he throws for 320, but then one game he throws
against like a better defense,
199. You know what I'm saying? Like
some games I'm still
highs, some games he has lows, but it evens out to like 260, 270 a game type.
I'm still bringing Kirk back. And in the non-hypothetical thing, I think now Kirk is I think he's more likely than he was last week to come back with the Vikings, just because the money's going to be better for the franchise to go with. I would assume, but we'll see. That's a talk for like 8 months from now.
Personally, I think I feel like you guys know what I'm going to say to this hypothetical, but I'm going to side with Jason. I think if he shows those, again, I'm just talking about the peaks and the valleys, because he's going to go through highs and lows. But if he peaks, if I see like big time games, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 whatever, and then you got a 199, you got a 185, you got and like 2 touchdowns. But he's not really turning the ball over like that. That shows me that it's his rookie year. He was thrusted into a situation where he didn't expect to be thrusted into, And even in that type of situation, under some adversity to try to replace Kirk right away mid-season while the team is rolling, it shows me he has potential to have those really good games. A full offseason, you never know. And again, rookie scale contract.
Yes.
You can build around him. You could get defensive pieces. You could re-sign everybody you need to re-sign. And now he has a full offseason to improve. He's learned lessons from the previous season. You never know. The next season, he could go out and, again, this is hypothetical, but the next season, he can go out and really ball to the standard that you would want. Kirk is amazing. He's a good quarterback. But we know his ceiling. And that is my problem. Even if Hall went out there and did exactly what I just said, we wouldn't know his ceiling yet. And that would be intriguing to me as a GM. If I could build around this guy without knowing his ceiling and he could go out there and ball, you never know. Or say he doesn't ball. Say you let go of Kirk. He has a good rookie season and he comes in the following season. You've built around him and he doesn't ball. You still have a ready-made organization, a ready-made team that you could drop a vet in and be where you need to be potentially, depending. I'm just saying that's
no.
You know, that's where my head is. This could be a gift and a curse at the same time. That's just my silver lining to all of this. Because eventually the Vikings were going to have to move off Kirk. And I don't think any of us thought, even with Kirk is playing as well as he's been playing, they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah. And for me, it's the domino effect of what affects what, because if bringing him back means you're not able to extend both JJ and Danielle Hunter, then I'm going to let the 36-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles walk. Yeah, but if you can make it all happen and get, you know, the trifecta, then I'd say bring him back just to see, because then you're going to get somewhat of a discount. And that's been the thing, is like, you can't build the team on the 40 million or whatever it is guaranteed. But if it's less than that and you can use that money to actually add a couple like savvy pieces on defense, and now Brian Flores is in the kitchen, just absolutely cooking, like like he's on the Bear, or he's in Hell's Kitchen or whatever. He's Gordon Ramsay in there. Yes, absolutely. But yeah, if not, I'd let Kirk go. Predictions?
Yes. Jump right in, because I know that took up way more time than I thought it would.
That was a good discussion. I like it.
Last thing I'll say about Kirk, just really quick, if we do resign him, there can't be a no trade clause in his contract next time around.
No, okay.
We need more flexibility if we're. I need more flexibility if we're going to commit to Kirk long term again. All right.
I think it's funny that you think he's signing somewhere without a trade. There's even a possibility.
He wouldn't even resign. I feel like.
You're probably right. You're probably right. He's going to want that again. But I don't know. With coming off an Achilles injury, I actually don't know if he has that bargaining chip anymore. All right. Yes, a lot of reckless speculation on this episode. Unfortunately, injuries kind of force us to do that. But there's still football to play, guys. There's still plenty of football to be played. This Minnesota Vikings team can still win, still make the playoffs. They take on the Atlanta Falcons this upcoming Sunday. Both teams are 4-4. But the line right now is Atlanta at 4.5. The over-under is 37.5. Guys, we'll start with Artis. Do we think the Vikings are going to be able to keep their momentum after stringing together 3 wins in a row against the Falcons? Or do we think my reality might come crashing down a bit? What do you think, Artis?
I think they'll be able to get it done. Now, one thing I will say is I don't want to completely sleep on the Falcons. But at the same time, I don't trust the Falcons at all. Like, I don't think they're a really good football team. I don't think they're put together very well. I don't have any faith in Ritter. I think one thing that is making me have all this speculation about Hall is, again, everything around him. You have weapons and you have a defense that is playing really high level football. Let's mess up my bad. He's laughing.
No, sorry. I'm just thinking. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, you have a defense. You have a defense that is playing really high level football. So if they can force some turnovers, if they can make some plays, give you short field opportunities, I think the Vikings can take advantage of that. The Falcons, the rest of this schedule is not a schedule I fear. Like, don't be shocked if I pick the Vikings to win all of these games, because I don't fear any of these teams. But I say all that to say, I think the Vikings, and I'll make it short, I think the Vikings win this game. Again, I think the defense is going to step up and make plays and make it really hard on the Falcons offense. Obviously, you got to worry about Bijan because he is a monster. He is what he is. But And the Falcons defense is decent. I'm not gonna lie, it's a decent defense.
They just lost Grady Jarrett though. That stinks for them.
They just what?
They lost Grady Jarrett, I think, to a torn ACL, so that stinks.
That's true. That is gonna hurt. But ultimately, I don't view the Falcons as a very good team. We're gonna learn a lot about Jaren this first game, like you said, first possession. But if I had to put my money on it, I will put my money on the Vikings defense to force turnovers and make plays, help Jaren Hall out in his first actual game starting from start to finish. And I will go with the Vikings somewhere along the lines of, I'll say, 21-17.
Very good. AJ.
Guys, it would be so it would be perfect for this to happen. It's Jaren Hall, it's Taylor Heineke, it's sloppy, ugly, muddy football.
I forgot Taylor is starting now.
Yeah.
My bad. That's on me.
That's why I'm scared for this game for the Vikings.
That might actually kind of save me a bit. I completely forgot. My bad to the audience. I forgot he's the starter now. I'm not gonna change my pick. No, I like Heineke though. I'm not gonna lie. But I'm still gonna roll with the Vikings 21-17. I'm gonna keep it the same. But I forgot all about that. Thank you for that, AJ.
It would make a lot of sense for just this sloppy, ugly game. The first NFL start of Jaren Hall's career is going to end. Are you guys ready?
No, but go.
In a 20-20 tie.
You can't.
I told you I was going to pick one. I told you I was going to
did it.
He
did it.
How serious is that pick? I'll let you decide, but I'm going to stand by a 20-20 tie between the Minnesota Vikings and Atlanta Falcons. I talked myself into picking a tie at some point this season. There's no other game on the schedule that I think could actually end in a tie other than this one, and I'm not giving it more than like a half of a percent of a chance. But if there was a game, gentlemen, it's this one. 20-20.
I love it. Honestly, I kind of wish you would have saved this one for the Broncos game, because if that one stayed in the Sunday night time slot, I think that would have just been perfect, because that game is flex and it's going to be awful.
That was the one that I was going with, but I think because it's going to get flexed, for some reason the football gods are going to be like, okay, that can't be a tie anymore now. So this is the one, 20-20.
I love it. It's so great. Oh my gosh. All right. I mentioned that I think that this Minnesota Vikings team is going to be extremely motivated to prove what they got, to prove that they have enough talent on this roster to compensate for the loss of Kirk Cousins. They are going to want to really get after Taylor Heineke. I fully believe that. Mentioned Grady Jarrett has a torn ACL. That's a big loss for that front seven for the Falcons. Hopefully we can get this darn run game going, guys. I wasn't too happy that Cam Akers got 9 carries to Alexander Madison's 16 against the Packers. I'd like that a little bit more even, if you don't mind, but you know what? I'm not the head coach. I don't make the rules or anything like that. But hopefully Jordan Addison will continue to ball out. I am a little bit worried that his production will go down now that Kirk Cousins isn't his quarterback. Not that he's not a very talented wide receiver in his own right. I just think Kirk has done a lot to help a guy like Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkins and even Justin Jefferson establish really good floors for their careers. But if Jordan Addison, we're going to find out how legit. We think he's already pretty dang legit now, but if Jordan Addison balls out as with Jaren Hall as his quarterback in this first game, that's going to only solidify Jordan Addison as the best rookie wide receiver in the NFL. I think the Vikings will win this game. Yeah, even though the Falcons are favored, I don't really care. A 23-16 win for the Minnesota Vikings. I admit, I'm kind of like you, Artis. Taylor Heineke's got that dog in him, and you know that because he played for the Commanders against the Eagles plenty of times.
Yeah, that throws a wrench in things. Yes. I can't believe that slipped my mind, but yeah, that throws a wrench in things.
Yeah, but I think this is his first start of the season. So he might be a little bit rusty too. So I don't think this is going to be an ultra uber awesome Taylor Heineke game that we've seen him have in the past. I think he's going to play pretty conservatively. And yeah, if you can stop Bijan, if you can stop Tyler Algier as well, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch in their own right. And we'll see what the blitz rate is like for the Vikings in this game. They only blitz 36% of the time against the Packers, which was a season low. So we'll see if that gets up a little bit against Taylor Heineke, who can move around in the pocket a little bit. But Vikings win 23-16. Artis had a 21-17 win for the Vikings, and AJ finally dressed up nice, put on a tie, 2020. That's the final score that I think's going to go down in the ATL. Guys,
hold on. I'm giving you the warning now. I'm giving you both the warning. If there is less than 2 minutes on the clock and the game is deadlocked at 2020, or like somebody's driving and we get to and it's 2020, we're getting on a group FaceTime and we are living those moments together, because I'm going to go ballistic if that's the case. You don't understand. I might bet. Yeah. I might. Oh my God, I don't even know what I'm going to do. But yeah, well, if it even gets close, we are getting on a call.
Got you.
Climb up a street pole like a Philly fan or something like that. We'll grease it up extra for you. Anyway, we got to get out of here on the SKOR North Taxi Squad. Thank you so much for listening and watching to the program. Guys, any final thoughts before we get on out of here?
The Timberwolves are off to a 1-2 start, not the ideal start. I got to double check the score of the Nuggets game, though, because they were up on the Nuggets. They're about to beat the Nuggets. Look like they might beat the Nuggets. 99.
Leads do not matter for this team.
No.
No.
In the ATL the last couple of days.
Wait, what was that?
Well, they played the Hawks, and they blew that fourth quarter lead. So
very true.
Vikings are in Atlanta this week, but the Timberwolves were in Atlanta earlier this week.
Very true. That's very true. I'm just saying it isn't the ideal start, but if you can somehow close out this game, it's 99-76 right now. 6 minutes left in the fourth. If you can close out this game, that'll be a big early win for the Timberwolves. So they're not playing ideal, but they might be in 2-2 with a big time win early this season that could maybe propel them. So we will see. Keep your eyes on the Timberwolves.
I need the Wild to start scoring on the power play. I need Matt Boley's supposed to play tomorrow against the Devils. Really, there's so many aspects that I could spend on like 10 minutes. Basically, 1, goalies need to be a little bit better. 2, defense needs to be a little bit better. 3, penalty kill needs to be a lot better. 4, power play needs to be a lot better.
So
5,
everything needs to be better.
5, coaching. Dean, don't be afraid to shuffle lines. Give Marco Rossi a little time up top. I need him. When I see the lineup card with Marco Rossi slotted in as the center of the top line of the Minnesota Wild, that's going to hit a certain part of my brain that I just am not ready for. That's going to be amazing.
Hit you heavier, that or if the Vikings actually tie 2020 to the Falcons.
Definitely the tie. That's not happening. That's not happening. But if it does, though, can you imagine?
Gosh, what if both happen? AJ's going to lose his mind.
I will never not play this clip. I will tweet that every day until I die. Me calling a 2020 tie.
It's like your Friday night ruckus tweets. It'll be just a tradition. Every single
I've always wanted to ask what that meant, but we'll talk about it off air. We got to wrap up.
All right. Again, thank you for joining us for this week of the SKOR North Taxi Squad. Everybody, get those fingers up. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify. Check us out on the SKOR North app, skornorth.com. But we prefer actually if you check us on the YouTube channel, see our lovely faces and everything like that. We'd absolutely appreciate that. Yeah, go Vikings. See what they got this week. My name is Jason Stormer. We got Artis Woods right there. AJ Fredrickson right there. We'll catch you guys next week on the latest episode of the Taxi Squad. Take care. Bye-bye.